Welcome to Truck Tech. I'm Thomas Wasson. This is a special episode from ACT Expo. I got to go before the event and visit the folks at Zeem Solutions, checking out their charging infrastructure and some of their vehicles. You don't want to miss it. It's a really great conversation. They're working on some crazy stuff in the infrastructure space. Stay tuned. We are here at Zeem Solutions at one of their charging facilities, and we're going to be diving in on some of the cool stuff they've been working on outside of the wonderful LAX airport, and we're super excited to be joined by Zeem's CEO. Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself first off, and then we'll dive in on what y'all are working on.
Appreciate having you guys come out and visit again. I'm Paul Gioupis, founder and CEO, started the company back in 2017, been involved in the EV industry as an investment banker and advisor since 2000, so been around the industry and the ecosystem for quite a long time.
And talk about the early days of 17, the ecosystem. You saw the whole thing. You saw the SPAC bubble. You saw the COVID bubble. What's some of the big things for folks who are now paying attention to this EV thing? Is there a kind of a story arc that we're seeing that's placing us right at this moment where it feels like a lot of stuff's about to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really interesting time in the industry in general. Number one, charging infrastructure has gotten really good, much more efficient, much higher power. I think the industry and its is now out of its infancy stage and starting to show some good maturity. I think the next major hurdle is getting trucks and vehicles that actually operate and can perform the duty cycle and do it at a price point that makes sense. So 2024 was a really interesting threshold year where you're starting to see some TCOs that are starting to make sense in the industry. And I think 2025 and 26, we actually get to diesel parity.
And I think one of the cool things is to get to parity, you need the infrastructure. It's like a chicken or the egg. Tell us about this unique site here. We're outside of LAX. This is one of the big hubs. This is a big commercial location. We'll get some B-roll and footage of all of this. There's vehicles of all kinds. How did that develop? Were any of these specific ones matriculating in? Any first movers or the first wave, kind of like a new species coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were the first one here. We pioneered the concept of a shared charging hub. When we first started the company, that was the understanding. We were going to operate out of airports and ports and really bring multiple fleets together. So what we have here is two sites. In combination, it's 3.1 acres total. We have 78 DC fast charging ports. We have 180 kilowatt chargers on the DC side. And then we have 53 AC ports level 2. So here, we could accommodate over 1,000 charge sessions per day. We operate fleets that are here to accommodate airport type operation. LAX is unique in that it actually does have quite a bit of Class 8 operations. There's a lot of cargo that comes into the airport here and goes down into the Long Beach area and some of the other warehouse districts. But the predominant operation here is going to be ride share, car rental, and then a lot of people movement going from the airport to car rental shops and to their hotels.
Talking about the chargers, AC and DC, and this isn't Edison frying an elephant anymore. What's for folks who are understanding what the fast charger means and the slow charger, is that something where I guess the AC is going to give me more juice or the DC gives me more juice? Because I got to talk with you earlier. It feels like there were two generations of chargers, and you all are incorporating both to help accommodate the different types of capacities.
Yeah, I think it's a major point that a lot of fleets don't understand and are really coming around to understand now. Level 2 charging is single phase power. That's typically what you're going to get in a residential type environment. So that level 2 is a slower charge. That's going to be taking anything that's sort of 80 amps or below and providing a level 2 charge. Really healthy. Batteries love that kind of a sort of power rating for EVs. What we do here is more predominantly level 3 charging. Level 3 charging, you're getting from sort of 80 to 100 amps upwards to over 1,000 amps, depending on what type of charger you're using. So here we have ABB 180 kilowatt chargers. These were some of their first generation 180 kilowatt chargers. We have amazing uptime, and we operate 36 of those DC fast chargers here dual port and have been operating since, again, 2021, done over 215,000 charge sessions out of this site and the other site that's neighboring here.
And putting on the investment banking hat, you all are working on expanding operations here. There's 2 locations right here. Tell us about what goes into expanding as well, because one of the big challenges is that as these people are adopting more EVs, you're going to have the folks build the area, dig out the locations, get the approval. You just got a lot of juice too. Tell us through the process how that works, because it looks like it's all flashy on the trucks right now. It's just as flashy charging.
It is. There's a huge process, unfortunately, in getting this done. Number one, this is a flagship site, so it helps explain to fleets what are we doing and how can you expand. So number one, it's driven by demand. If you don't have the demand, you shouldn't be building a charging hub. So the first things first is you have the demand, you understand what type of equipment you're going to be operating. You need to understand how much power you actually need to supply fueling, let's call it energy, to those vehicles. So that's number one. Number two, you then engage with the utilities. You want to make sure that you could actually get that kind of power. So it's pretty complicated to line up permitting, zoning, get the power, and actually have the demand. So those are major, major things that you need to have in place before you're even considering starting a hub like this. All of our sites are at minimum 5 megawatt interconnections. That's not a usual amount of power to ask the utility for. And then on the other end, the utility wants to make sure you're actually going to be a user of all 5 megawatts. So what happens is we've been in operation now for several years. We have utilities that understand we know what they're looking for. And if we're asking for a certain amount of power, they realize we're going to use, if not all of that power, a majority of that power. So there's some complications in making sure that all those kinds of things line up to be able to actually build one of these.
And you guys, one of the things I've heard from conversations at other conferences is that one of the things is also prime real estate. You're next to LAX. That place needs a lot of juice. And so it's easier to find, when you're making these financial decisions, having this location is a huge advantage, because the utility is like, well, I've already got some line here. It's a lot easier than if we were on the other side and having to dig it and everything.
You're absolutely right. That was one of the moats for Zeem in the beginning, was coming into an area that was bordering the airport. You're in the airport district, so you're actually able to operate airport-style businesses in this area. And what happened was, before anybody was thinking about grabbing large chunks of power for EV charging, we made that move here 3.5 years ago. So we were able to take the majority of all the power that was in this grid line here. We happen to border LADWP, and we're on the Southern Cal Edison side. So we were very fortunate to get the interconnection that we did. That is a rarity. We also did the same thing in Long Beach. We also did the same thing in Newark, New Jersey. So a lot of this is, where can you go where there's high activity, where it's going to be obvious that EV trucking will happen, but making sure that you get the zoning, the permitting, the power, and the customer demand. So again, without all of those things working together, there's no opportunity for EV charging. And
right now, as you mentioned how they're setting aside blocks, there's only so much juice to go around. So having that first mover advantage means that they've demonstrated that your guys are good, compared to like if I just want to open one up and just, hey, Thomas's charging thing.
You're exactly right. I mean, look, the utilities very much are thrown under the bus around this kind of stuff. But what happens is the utilities very often will run into companies like Zeem who will ask for an exorbitant amount of power, but they don't even realize they're not going to use that much power. So the utilities have to make a decision at that time. Does the counterparty really understand how much power they're going to use? Southern Cal Edison took a shot with Zeem. We have, as you could see, a bunch of shuttles and vehicles that were in our fleet previous when we applied for the power. So what happened is, usually it's the other way around. I'm trying to acquire a large fleet of vehicles and I need this power. So the utility has to make the determination, are you really going to get the vehicles that you're promised? Because there's a lot of negative stories out there about not getting deliveries. And then on the other end, Zeem already had our vehicles. So they were able to calculate, we need all 7.5 megawatts that they delivered to us and that we're actual user of it. So since that's happened, it's a major hurdle to jump through with the utility, because you need to get the power allocated in order to deliver the service, and you need to have the utility have confidence in what you're telling them that you need. So Zeem has crossed a bunch of those hurdles. And now everywhere that we go, everybody realizes how big of a power user we are here in this market, so we could replicate that same thing in other markets and give the utility confidence we're actually going to use it.
You got a use case, because the one thing they don't want is all of a sudden everyone plugs in their toasters at once and then the pew, like in the movies.
And it's very real. Absolutely agreed.
Well, let's talk about, it's ACT Expo. We're going to be airing this thing after all the embargoes lift. You guys have any cool news or anything you're announcing while at this event?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of different things. I mean, Zeem has always been an innovator in the industry, in my opinion. We are very focused on not just providing the infrastructure, but you need to have the right vehicles that actually operate. What you're going to find on our lot is infrastructure and actual equipment that you don't really see in the United States right now. You see, for example, a coach bus here that's all electric, that'll do a 300-mile route and has availability in the United States right now. That's an airport application that I think many are thirsting for. There just is no buses that can meet the duty cycles. Everything that's out there is sort of a retrofit of a diesel. So we have some ground-up vehicles here. The other thing you're going to find is a mix of different vehicles. So we have everything from shuttles that were manufactured out of China to 4D transits to bright drops to Nikola trucks and Volvos and everything in between. So having that mix, we have a good understanding of what type of vehicles will meet a duty cycle, what works, what doesn't work, what's problematic, what sort of maintenance and repair work do we need to be doing. That's something that, again, is unique because we're not only doing the charging, we're doing the service work, and we're fleet managers as well. So having all three of those things is what encompasses our offering. And then I think another interesting thing that you'll see here is, we have a great relationship developing with Tesla. Tesla's semi-truck is very much in demand, and we have the capability here to do some charging. So we have a skidded charging solution that Tesla has dropped on the site. We are going to be a big acquirer of their vehicles, and we intend on operating their infrastructure for our customers as well. So I think that's a lot of the innovation that you're going to see here. The other thing that we do here that I think is also unique is we've demonstrated true power sharing. We have everything from cars all the way up to the big trucks. Everything has a different type of power that it'll pull from a charger. So we do a very good job of utilizing charging software to be able to throttle up and down what the charging needs are, and also doing battery balancing. Batteries don't love fast charge every day, so we use a lot of our charger management software to balance out batteries and really increase the health of a piece of equipment. For us, it's not about just providing the service. You need longevity in the charger, you need longevity in the equipment. So Zeem's offering is about extending the life of the equipment as well.
So like if I bought myself some Volvos or a Nikola and I got these grants, I got them delivered, that's where we're going to come in and help out as well, because I may not know how much juice it needs. I don't know how long it needs to park there, but you all are balancing this, this balancing act, kind of like an airport, but for charging. And then you can come in and help them out.
That's exactly right. I think for us, what we do is we'll promote a product, but we promote the product based off of what our data is telling us. So for example, Volvo or Daimler or Nikola may have a range rating that they'll tell the customer. If a customer comes to us and they want a contract for the next 3 to 5 years, we give them what our data has been telling us. It's not a slight on any of the OEMs. It's just drivers are different, conditions are different. So if somebody's going to come in and they want to operate let's say a Volvo EV&R, which has been a great performer for us, and they're doing a route that's right at the top end of their range requirement, we're going to discourage them because over a 3 to 5 year period of time, you're going to get natural battery degradation. Those trucks are not going to meet that route. So we're very educational. We explain what is actually deliverable today, and we want to be in reality because we don't want anybody to have a negative experience. There's enough negativity that's out there in our industry. Yeah. But the moment you package it up with the reality, there's a battery, there's an environment that you're operating that truck, you have an operator. All of those things are factors in a diesel and or an EV. So what we do is we package it up and we're very educational. We want to be honest on what we could deliver to the customer. So for us, the truck is one component, the charger's another component. We want to make sure that we're also operating it. So the uptime of the vehicle, uptime of the charging and their fleet is where our offering comes into play. So it's not just taking the charging piece. You want to orchestrate everything with the vehicles and the transportation directors and make sure you can complement who's going to be operating a diesel fleet. Nobody's going to go all electric, nor should they. Yeah. So what happens in that transition, you're going to have some equipment that may be diesel, CNG, or any other technology. Then you have that EV piece, and it's better to isolate that EV piece, operate it till you know you have all the efficiencies worked out. Then you could bring that into your fleet as a day-to-day operation, if that makes sense. So we're very captive, especially in the first few years of operation.
And talking about the big deal with the Tesla charger too, one thing we were saying is it has a different requirement for juice, and so it has a different port and a different type. Is that going to be something where having that ability to collect this data, you're going to be in a better position to say, look, you're looking to buy one of 3 or 4 or 5 providers. they all charge with me. So you have this backdoor capability providing this data versus the hypotheticals and the press releases and all that.
You've nailed it. I mean, for us, we're very agnostic from the vehicles to the chargers to everything in between. For us, we don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work. You know, we have some equipment on our lot that many would think would have failed very early on. It operates because we keep the operations going. So yeah, I mean, it's understanding what is range, what is payload, what is capable. Is something going to live a full duty cycle? You know, most of the vehicles that we were buying 3 or 5 years ago, we knew weren't going to last a full duty cycle, meaning a life cycle of at least 5 years in a lease. Yeah. So what we did is some of them actually did. And the ones that did surprised us, and we contracted the customer with that understanding that this equipment will be glitchy, and if it does and it's catastrophic, we'll take it off their hands. But operating that way through the last 4 years of our operations, learned a lot. We learned a lot about every single OEM. And the key about this as well is how do you integrate with them? So when you actually acquire their equipment, what happens day 1? What happens day 30? What happens year 1? All that stuff is important because it aggregates into, do we make a decision to buy this equipment or not? And will we get the support that we need or not? And that knowledge we pass on to our customers. We're not big on publicizing it. I know there's NACFE and there's a whole number of really good data sets that we could participate in. We choose not to do that and take that information and turn around to our customers and create a better offering, if that makes sense, because it's just early days today. You could throw every single one of these OEMs under the bus, or you could figure out how to support them. Zeem takes the latter approach. Yeah. There's ways to support them. There's a lot of negative that's out there for diesels as well as EV, but it's important to put them to surface and then understand that Zeem's offering is going to complement that. If there is a glitch, if it doesn't charge, if there's certain things, Zeem is here to help them make sure that that truck gets up and goes the next day. And if they know they have that assurance, that's how Zeem insulates their risk.
Talk about this location at Long Beach y'all are working out as well, because this is, you're capturing the airport, expedited, going to the areas. For Long Beach, is that something where you've had conversations where there's gold in their hills because of the EVs around the port, or is it something like a growth play?
It's a really interesting and good question. Number one, our investor is called ArcLight Capital Partners. They're a very large investor in utility assets. So they buy decommissioning power plants. What's unique about Long Beach and our site in New Jersey, both of them are power plants that are either being decommissioned or have been decommissioned. So what's happening is we're taking this huge amount of power that's already there. We're doing a brand new interconnection. So we're not using the power at the plant. That's at origination of where transmission and distribution power is. Yeah. So there's a huge amount of power that's there. So we're doing a 15 megawatt interconnection in Long Beach. It's the largest interconnection by far. It's about 3-acre site. There we're doing a blend of CCS1 charging, which is going to charge all your Volvos and your Daimlers, et cetera. And then there's also going to be the Tesla megawatt charging. So then that way we can charge a plethora of vehicles. And to your point, getting the knowledge on all of these vehicles, we're going to be able to turn around to our customer and be able to tell them what's going to meet your duty cycle. Not everything needs to go 300 to 500 miles. Yeah. So there are other trucks that are going to fit that duty cycle. So Long Beach is a monumental site for us. It's taking a power plant and it's showing what you could do with EV charging, but it's also going to be a huge distributed energy play. And that site, we're going to be able to ramp up power in a massive way out of that site. And I think you're also going to see other alternative technologies coming out of that site. We see hydrogen as part of the future there. And then we also see the same thing in our Newark site. So it's all about huge interconnections. It's about doing it at transmission level. So we're coming in at much higher voltages than what you would normally get in an industrial environment or at the airport like here. So Long Beach is our first step in that direction.
Are you turning the decommissioned power plant back on to provide the juice?
So the idea would be, yes, down the road to figure out a way to turn let's call it a dirtier plant and reflip it back on with cleaner technology. Things like battery storage are very much tip of mind. It's also getting interconnections and utilizing the power that's there for EV charging. So what happens is very first stage, just get a brand new interconnection in. But the next step is how do we take the power that's already there and flip it back on and actually use it for EV charging, data center usage, et cetera. There's a lot of power that needs to get into the market, let's call it, whether it's AI or any of these new technologies that are out there. EV charging for trucks certainly interferes with that, but it could be complementary. So the way that I see it is it should be complementary.
I'm going a little longer on this because I have a far out question. So by building out the lines, which will carry the juice, and I'm using the juice because I'm very much a layman, but I know that you got to juice it up and you need an amount of a thoroughfare. Looking into other energy, like can you theoretically, having that developed, put a little Gen 4 modular nuclear reactor and the lines will handle it and then you can send it out?
Absolutely. Look, I think nothing is off the table. Right now, we're looking at all the SMR technology, everything that's out there. The best test case, in my opinion, is taking a business case like ours. If you need to do EV charging, for example, this site, maximum load is about 4 megawatts. So if you took an SMR and you took a 5 megawatt SMR and demonstrated that you could take an SMR, you could hook it into a EV charging hub and actually power up trucks, I think that's a brilliant use case and a good way to test. Would an SMR work? Would other technologies complement? Today, we're seeing a lot of natural gas technology and other propane technology, et cetera, that's coming in as supplemental power. As clean or cleaner than the grid, right? So that argument, I think, is there. You know, it's deliverable. But can you do that at big scale? We're very open-minded around that kind of stuff.
So it's the private play. Imagine if I have a little generator like with TVA in Chattanooga. If you manage to have the ability to produce your own juice, you can, in times of the ebbs and flows, contribute back into the grid and get a little bit of a discount or something. Is that how they treat it as a utility? Like if you take the time to build out these lines, make these deals, you're like, boom, I'm going to help out the team. Like
100%.
That's a future.
On our team is actually the pioneer of the AC propulsion motor, regen, and bidirectional charging. 100% is the mindset here. We're a huge power user. But we could also push it back and we could be good citizens of the grid. That's 100% top of mind. So microgridding our sites, being able to come in, and California is a really interesting market. I'm a glutton for punishment. So I come into a market that's very fragmented.
Yeah.
So it's fragmented during the winter, during the summertime rates, it's fragmented during the time of day. So being able to try to figure out the best way to arbitrage and give our customers the best consistent price, because nobody wants to hear that in the summertime your rates go up. And then if you charge between 4 and 9 during peak out here, that your rates are double or even more. That's something that's very confusing to a user because fuel costs are just the fuel cost.
Yeah.
So out here, using microgrids, batteries are perfect buffers and are very much needed. So yes, the whole power piece, at the surface we look like a charging hub with trucking and fleet operations. One layer deeper is a very, very sophisticated distributed energy play that's out there around power arbitrage, microgridding, batteries, and everything in between.
And that's, I'm thinking as well, you mentioned there were 2 or 3 different utilities. So in LA alone, is there like 3 or 4 utilities that carve it up? So it's almost like you got to get gangs to give you permission to be on their turf?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, look, this is where we really enjoy the relationship with Southern Cal Edison. They've been very progressive in leaning in. They've created a lot of programs around this. They've proven to us they want this stuff. As I mentioned to you earlier, when you make your first leaps and they realize you're a user, you're not just throwing numbers out there, they very much follow you and they want you to do a second and a 10th and a 20th. That we very much enjoy. So yes, the utilities, here you have 3 or 4 big dinosaurs that have been around. So SCE, PG&E, and LADWP would be the 3 that come to mind. There are some others that are smaller that operate, let's say, in very niche areas. But the idea here is get to understand companies like Zeem. We're huge power users. And what happens is our usage throughout the day is very complementary to what time of use, or I should say demand usually is. So as an example, here we're heavy users between 4 and 9 in California.
Yeah.
That's our peaks. All the trucks, everything like to charge overnight. So that 9 o'clock to sort of 5 in the morning window, that's when most of our power's coming. And then the other thing is during the day, when everybody wants to come in, if you're an Uber all the way up to, some of the bigger tractors that want a daytime charge or what we call opportunity charge, there's plenty of solar like we're seeing right now. During the day like now, you're getting a ton of sun, that renewable is there. This is the cheaper time to charge. So the idea is, could you take that, put it into a battery or some sort of a microgrid, and then be able to discharge when power is high? We're very much about being good citizens of the grid.
I'm getting my mind blown. Final question. You're getting in the standalone territory now. When we're looking ahead, having a use case, so this is one of the locations that's the test case of here's what works, I have all the data, I know what's charging. That makes it easier for you compared to other providers of infrastructure because you've got Edison saying, these guys are cool, they're actually legit, here's the data. You can go in these other markets now when the other providers are just saying, I'm going to buy some trucks and just trust me, bro.
Yes, exactly 100%. That ecosystem I talked about earlier, the utility needs to know you're really there. The OEM really needs to know you're going to use this many trucks. And that OEM will never say, do you have the charger there? Because if you don't have the charger, they don't want to deliver the vehicle. So there's a lot of sort of chicken and egg that goes on in there. Zeem is solving that problem. And the next problem is going to be, can you service this truck? You know, Daimler, Volvo are great companies. But the EV side is still very nascent. So if you're sitting in Seattle as an example, which we're entering that market, if you don't have serviceability there, we need to make sure that we're that first layer and that we know how to work with the OEMs on the charger side and on the vehicle side. So it's pretty complicated, but it's not, right? If that makes sense. We geared the offering specifically where we knew that those gaps were going to be. And then the other thing is the distributed energy play today is just pixie dust. For many fleet operators, they just know the vehicle better start, better do its duty and come back. The whole distributed energy piece down the road, Zeem will go back, and that's just going to lower the total cost of operations for fleets. We want to be able to drop these nodes. This would be a node at an airport, a node at the port. You start aggregating 10, 20, 30 of these, the data collection, the power, access, et cetera, all of that is substantial. That's the future of Zeem.
And then I can have my battery area in the middle, and based on the inputs and outputs, I can distribute juice during peak times, and that's the arbitrage. So instead of paying double, I stored them in these locations during favorable hours. I paid the utility. Now I'm paying, okay, I'm seeing that. The wheels are turning now.
Bingo.
Paul, this is a phenomenal interview. Thank you so much. If folks want to learn more about Zeem, get in touch, catch up on all this info. Best way to find out.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thanks again for watching Truck Tech. If you're just joining us, you can check us out on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, wherever you can find your podcast. And while you're at it, subscribe to the Truck Tech newsletter, freightwaves.com/trucktech. It goes out every Friday. See you next week.